Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be re-lent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a micro-lender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
With me today is Snowden McFall, the owner of Fired Up Professional Speaking and Coaching. She is a 27-year keynote speaker, 6-time author, executive coach to leaders in confidence, public speaking, stress, and burnout prevention, and making more money. Snowden, how are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm fired up to be with you, Gerald.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, I always ask my guests this question. What has made you so successful in your career up to this point where you've done all of these things, a 6-time author, keynote speaker, you got a couple of companies, I believe, besides just the one that we talked about. So how does that happen for you?
Lots of hard work, right, Gerald? You know what I mean.
Exactly.
It's not like we wake up and we're an instant success. We make mistakes along the way. We learn a lot. We try new things. I'm grateful to have been involved in a great deal of community service, and that's been extremely fulfilling for me.
Right.
I was humbled to be named the National Women in Business Advocate of the Year by the Small Business Administration, and that got me honored at the White House, and that led to some visibility. So that was very humbling and quite a surprise, but that came from my community service work. So you never know. I think what you have to do is do what you love, put your energy and effort into that, and then you learn and you grow and you keep going no matter what.
Exactly. I had someone do an exercise in a program I took, and it started off with bringing out dartboards. And it was like he created like teams of 3 or 4 people each, and we all took times throwing darts. And it was like, okay, don't stop until you get a bullseye.
Oh,
and sometimes it would take someone 20 times before they would get a bullseye. But his point in doing that was, when you start something, sometimes you have to throw a lot of darts and try a lot of different things before you figure out that bullseye to get you there. And that's what your conversation, what you just said, reminded me of, is that you have to try a lot of things and you have to figure out, where your sweet spot is, what works, and where your service is, but then where you focus is where you go. Exactly.
Right. And also, be willing to change.
Yes.
You and I have both been in business for a long time. We've been working a long time. And so the professional speaking part of my business, the coaching part of my business, all that grew out of my work with my ad agency and my community service work. So, life changes. And when you have new books come out, different things happen as a result of that. When you do media interviews and different life experiences, I think one of the hardest things for me was overcoming a corporate takeover attempt by my two oldest employees.
Oh,
Pretty
wow.
close in, not that long into my business. And I figured it out and I fired them, but it was very painful and it was very difficult. But I ended up being interviewed about it on CNN. So, who knows? You never know what life is going to be. I was promoting my Fired Up book, and he started asking me this side note that my publicist had included. So you just never know what's going to happen in life.
Gotcha. Now, I've added a couple of new questions to my podcast. And so one is, what's your favorite style or genre of music?
I have two. I love soul music because I was raised in the South. I was raised in North Carolina, and I love soul music. And I also love smooth jazz. Earth, Wind, and Fire is my favorite band. So.
Excellent. Let me ask you another question here before we take a deep dive into your book. And that is, with the music that you listen to, are there ways that music has helped you to be more creative? Is there certain types of music that you listen to when you're working, or you find yourself to be most creative?
I think music is an incredible gift and tool. And yes, it's a major stress reliever. We'll talk about that.
Yes.
But for me, I have essentially a couple of different playlists.
Okay.
One is my, when I'm in the car and it's terrible traffic, I have a chill out playlist, right? One that calms me down, slow down, don't get stressed out, mellow out. And then when I'm getting ready to go give a speech or go meet with a coaching client, I've got a Fired Up playlist. So I use music to get me into state. Tony Robbins talks a lot about that. I use music to get me into state, whether it's a calm down state or whether it's a fired up state.
Now, I don't know if you knew this, but the root of the word music is a Greek word called the muse. Art of the muse. And it's the focus of the muse is to meditate, to think. So that's why when we listen to music, it puts us in a meditative state, or it changes our state. So if we listen to aggressive music, it makes us more aggressive. But if we listen to calming music, even in a difficult situation, it calms us down. So there's ways we can create playlists for ourselves that when we know we're going to be in a stressful situation or facing a stressful thing, create a playlist that allows you to calm down and use the muse to your advantage. So listen, about your book, it's called The Stress Express. I read through it. I really loved it. And I really love this one quote. And maybe you could tell me, where'd you get it from? Or I kind of talk about it when I read it. But what inspired you to add it to the book? That's a better question. Your quote was, a 2006 Journal of Advanced Nursing study showed that listening to music 1 hour a day for a week reduced symptoms of depression by 25%. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And unfortunately, in the American society we live in, we're so drug focused as a way to relieve depression. And I tend to not want to do that. My mother was terminally ill from the time I was 6 to I was 21, and she was in and out of the hospital. I think if there are natural and healthy ways to relieve depression, that's a great way to go for it. Music is one of those. And that's one of the things that inspired me. Walnuts also help relieve depression.
Excellent. I love walnuts.
But all those, there's a lot of natural, healthy ways to relieve depression. Exercise is a one. So
yoga. I know you talked about yoga in there.
I love yoga. I've been doing yoga for 30 years. I love it.
And you also mentioned aromatherapy, but I don't want you to comment. We'll come back to that one.
Okay.
All right. So now in the book, The Stress Express, well, let me just ask you this question. How does stress impact an individual's ability to maintain focus or productivity in the workplace? Like, what is that impact of stress on people?
As you would expect, it dramatically lowers productivity and it dramatically interferes with people's ability to concentrate. We live in a squirrel culture, where we're all distracted, and ADHD is all too common. Stress just makes that harder.
Yeah.
And you know that if you haven't had a good night's sleep and you're tired, it's very difficult to be productive and effective. So stress just cuts way down in productivity. In fact, it costs American business over $500 billion a year.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Employee absences, sickness, and lower productivity.
Yeah, I know. In the book, you had a lot more statistics about that when it came to just the impact of stress on work performance, health, absenteeism, just the lack of engagement for employees. Can you talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, even today, the most recent statistics from Gallup, less than 40% of American workers are engaged. It's close to 30%. And if they're not engaged at work, they're not being productive. They're not being effective. They'd like to be anyplace else but work. It just goes hand in hand. So this book was written before COVID. And so COVID has also had a big impact on because and COVID is still around. I have 3 people in my life, a couple clients and friends who just in the past week were knocked flat on their back by COVID. So
yes,
COVID,
it is.
It's not gone. So it's a major stressor and it impacts the workforce as well.
Exactly. Now, you do talk about in your book that there are several quick stress relief techniques. Which of these techniques would you say you have found to be most effective in improving productivity, and why?
So I think the most important one, the first one, is the breath. I think we all have a tendency to take it for granted, but taking a deep breath is a great way to release tension in your body. I could just feel, my shoulders and neck release some tension right there. The breath is a very, very powerful and easy and simple and fast way to relieve stress just immediately.
Exactly.
And so using your breath, deep breathing is really, really powerful. And deep breathing is also a way you can go into a meditative state. But just in life in general, one of the things I do a lot of is I coach leaders in confident public speaking. And that's a major stressor. People are more scared to speak publicly than they are to die. Right. And so when I'm working with my clients and these leaders on their speeches, I say, take a breath. Exactly. And before each major point, take a breath, just pause. The breath is a major resource.
Yeah. I've learned something about breath work. And one of the things that just a small technique that I learned was called box breathing, where you count to 4, you take you breathe in and you count to 4, you hold the breath for 4 counts, you breathe out for 4, and then you hold for 4. And it was made famous by Navy SEALs under stress in battle. And so if there's any place to be really stressed out,
you bet.
As a Navy SEAL, which is it's not like a whole brigade of soldiers, it's just a few of you under threat, but to use the breath to help you stay calm in those very challenging moments shows the power of our breath and how it can really help us.
That's right.
Now, I did want to ask you, I mentioned aromatherapy earlier, and obviously it's just, some oils or senses and things like that. Why does that work? And why is that so another way of relieving stress?
Well, it's interesting because people have a tendency to take scent for granted. But right now, if you close your eyes, Gerald, and I ask you to go back to when you were a little kid and maybe you spent some time around your grandparents, what's the fragrance that comes to mind?
Peppermint.
Peppermint. There you go. Okay. And why is that?
My grandmother always had peppermints.
There you go. Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, and that particular scent is powerful for you, right?
Yes, it is. And I love peppermints.
So memory is closely related to scent. Yeah. And, if we can trigger positive memories in ourselves when we're stressed out, that helps us relax and relieve stress. But it was fascinating to me when I did the research on this book. I had been burnt out myself, which is why I became a burnout expert. I think you teach most what you need to learn most, right?
Exactly.
And so I was fascinated to learn that for any of your audience who has little children, you put vanilla oil on their wrists and they'll calm right down. It's like, wow, okay. It's a very simple, easy way.
Yeah.
You do have to be careful with essential oils around pets because they can be deadly. So be very careful about that. But, a lot of people love the scent of lavender to help them sleep. I'm not personally a lavender person, but a lot of people love that. Eucalyptus, if you're leading any kind of team building training, Gerald, I know you work with teams like I do. Eucalyptus in the room helps people come together.
Oh,
and
wow.
so fragrance is powerful, very powerful.
It really is. And I actually have a aromatherapy protocol that I use in the morning. I wake up, I put a little bit on, and it's different ones on different days. And I take a big whiff of it, and it just, resets the body, gets you kind of focused, and helps me kind of get my day started. And it was something I would have never done before until I started learning about the power of aromatherapy. Now, what are some common stressors that derail productivity, and how can we, our listeners, proactively manage them?
Health issues. I mentioned COVID. COVID's still very much out there, and it is a major stressor if you look at the latest data and statistics about what's causing stress. Health in terms of mental health. We talked about depression and mental health. We're in a mental health crisis in our country. Physical health issues, obesity is at an all-time high in the United States. So physical health creates, and whether or not you can pay your bills for that medical care. Money obviously is a major stressor, having enough money. For the first time ever in our local area in Jacksonville, 50% of the homeless people are women. So that means women and children are out on the streets.
Right.
Violence is another big cause of stress. Those same women and children out on the streets, 98% of homeless people have been attacked. So those are some of the major things. And then workplace stress. Work is a major stressor for many, many people.
Exactly. Now, you also talk about chronic stress. How does chronic stress impact our decision-making and creativity? And what steps can we take to mitigate that?
I think it's like anything in life. Obviously, chronic anything means it's ongoing.
Yeah.
And so that it's a wake-up call to your body, to your consciousness to make some changes. And so when you're in a situation where you're chronically stressed, the first thing you look at is, like, if I'm working with one of my clients and they are stressed all the time. I had one CFO who worked for an international global company. She was continually stressed and hated her job and had a very difficult CEO to deal with. And she was very unhappy. And so we looked at her chronic stress and said, okay, so what's going on? And it was all about this boss, which in fact is one of the major causes of stress for people leaving the workplace. The number one reason people leave the workplace is their immediate supervisor, their manager.
Right.
And so I worked with her to come up with her ideal vision of an ideal job that she would like to have and what kind of a work environment she would want and all of that. And we even planned her exit strategy and exactly what she would ask for when she resigned and all that. And it ended up that the guy came in and cleaned house, and she was able to negotiate exactly what she wanted because we had prepared for it. And now she's doing work that she really loves. Her stress levels have gone way down, and she's made significant changes. But what you really have to do with chronic stress is get to the cause of it, why it's happening, and then make changes in your life.
Yeah. I would definitely say getting to the root cause, because what I've learned in my life is that if you don't manage or deal with chronic stress will deal with you.
That's right.
And I had a major, I think, and I've shared it on a number of times in my podcast here, but I've had a major bout with vertigo. And, I asked doctors and went through neurologists and so on and so forth after the incident, because it left me with a vestibular, I call it a constraint, imbalance that I have to deal with. And I realized that after looking back at what was going on at life at that time, there were some chronic stressors that were just constantly drove this situation that I was dealing with. I wasn't even recognizing those things were there. And the stress came out in this way. And so I had to really learn how to rebuild my life and restructure my life in a way that I address stress on a regular basis. And one of those ways was yoga.
Well, how cool. So
Yeah,
you got
every morning
my sport, my favorite.
I will get up and do a yoga routine. I will do meditation. I will
Mhm.
do the aromatherapy. I will do prayer and Bible study and those kinds of things. But it was and planning and writing out my goals. But it was almost like 2 hours in the morning I would spend just preparing myself so that as I'm going through the day, I know exactly what I'm doing. And that's when everything started changing for me.
That's right. And that setting yourself up for success is so important.
Yeah.
Also, throughout the day, make sure you take meaningful breaks, step
Yeah.
away from the computer, step away from what you're doing, look outside, take deep breaths, focus on your goals, do a reset. If you listen to Brendan Burchard, he talks about doing a reset every 60 to 90 minutes.
Exactly. Like I work with Dr. Paul Shealy, and we talk about the idea of a reset or a drop in, or doing stopping, doing some qigong exercises to refresh the body. It really boils down to we can overload ourselves if we think, hey, I can just kind of work through this, and the answer is you can't.
So,
You may try to work through it, but somewhere in there your brain shuts down and the work production goes down, and it's better to just take the break. And even if it means taking a nap, even if it means taking a walk, if you're in the office, just go to the water cooler or go to take a walk somewhere and then come back, but do something to kind of reboot the system, if you will. Right.
exactly. That's exactly my point.
Exactly. So as we get ready to land this plane, one of the things I thought about and I wrote down as a question, and it's around the idea of focus, is, many people see stress as something that's inevitable. And in some ways it is, right? Because we live in
Right.
a stressful environment and it is inevitable. But what
Right.
mindset shifts would you suggest we focus on to transform how we see stress from being something that is a burden to being something that drives us towards being a productivity booster
Well,
more
I think if
just a
you
burden?
look at stress as a wake-up call, I think that's really powerful because, like in your case with your health incident, and it usually shows up in health
Yeah,
issues. I think it's a wake-up call to let you look at your life, see where you are. Stress is not necessarily bad.
right,
We don't need to label it one way or the other.
right.
I mean, when you're very excited about something and you have a major, like I just came off of, I had a client who had huge presentations to do, had a couple of their leaders they wanted me to work with. And it was very intensive. It was, 70 hours of coaching over just a few weeks periods of time. I
Okay,
was working very long hours, but I was excited about it. It was positive stress. I was seeing them make tremendous changes and improving and helping them. And I was even writing their scripts and creating their PowerPoints. And it was fun. It was exciting, but it was a short period of time. I
right.
think when it comes to stress, you also want to give yourself time limits.
Mm,
I could go like that for a brief period of time because I knew I was going on vacation at the end of it. I'd
right,
already planned the vacation before I even got booked for it. So it's like, okay, I can do this for 3 weeks. I can do the really intensive. And then after that, I'm taking a break and a vacation. I
right.
couldn't go like that all the time. So
Yes,
you have to give yourself time limits. And I think you also need to realize that even when you're doing exactly what you love and you're spending a lot of time doing it, you've got to take care of yourself.
yes,
Take care of yourself first so that then you can take care of others. If you don't practice good self-care, if you don't get at least 7 hours of sleep, if you don't drink at least 8 hours, 8 glasses of water a day, if you don't do the things that honor your body and keep you fit and healthy, the stress is going to accumulate and create major health issues.
yes. I totally agree. And it really helps with the idea of where you focus your attention, even as you're dealing with the stress, because even doing that 3 weeks of stress, you knew that there was a reward coming.
That's
So,
right.
so as you were going through that stressor, you're able to focus on the reward and where you were going, because where we've put our focus, it's kind of like driving. If you look, you know, off and you're not paying attention to the road, you find yourself drifting.
That's right.
And that's what we do in life.
Well, what you focus on magnifies.
Yes.
You want to be crystal clear about what you want in your life and focus on that. The problem that I see with a lot of people is if they're in debt, they focus on debt instead of on prosperity and abundance.
Right.
Instead of focusing on gratitude. If you are feeling constrained or feeling worried about money, the first thing you should do is write down a list of everything you're grateful for. Because when you shift into gratitude, you expand. When you focus on debt, you contract. You want to focus on expansive activities, and you want to focus on your goals every day, regularly.
Yeah.
What you focus on is what manifests.
And again, I will say, doing those two things that you just talked about, which is every morning I started writing out 5 things every day that I was grateful for. Even if it was just, I woke up and I have all of my faculties. I'm in my right mind and I have a place to live. I mean, I just had to just kind of get basic, right? And then write out my goals as affirmations by hand. And I did that every day. And I'm telling you, things just started happening so fast. It was like my focus was so honed in on where I was going and what I wanted in my life, that all of the challenges that were around me that I was going through began to just melt away, and what I wanted into my life came into my life. So let me ask you this last question here, really 2 more questions, and that is, what role does workplace culture play in either exacerbating or alleviating stress? And how can leaders create an environment that fosters both well-being and high productivity?
Well, as I said before, your manager is the number one reason people leave their jobs and create the most stress. So be a good leader, be a good boss. And by that, I mean, there's a couple of things that they've discovered that employees really want. One of them is they want to have autonomy over the way they do their job. Obviously, there are certain jobs that have to be done a specific way, but within that structure, they want to have autonomy. And they want to be able to have some independence, not be micromanaged. So don't micromanage. They want to be in on things. So don't save the news until it comes out in the media. If something's going to change in the company, tell people about it in advance, include them in advance. They want to be included. They want to have opportunities to learn and grow. So professional development and moving up in their jobs. And they also want to have specific positive feedback. So those are all things that a good leader can do, and keep your promises to your people, because I see a major break in trust in the workplace these days, and that's creating a great deal of stress.
Exactly. Snow, this has been a great conversation. If someone wants to learn and work with you, to learn more about you, to buy your books, to become a part of your community, where can they go?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is offer them a free tip sheet. So if your listeners would like to have a free tip sheet on the top 10 most unusual stress relievers, ones you would not think of. They're not necessarily in this book at all, but unusual stress relievers, I'll be happy to send that to them for free. All they need to do is send an email to connect, CONNECT, at firedupnow.com. That's FIREDUP now.com. And that's my website, firedupnow.com. So that's where all my books are, all the information about my speaking engagements and my coaching services are there. And I'd be happy to send out the free tip sheet to your folks.
Excellent. Well, this has been a great conversation. I know that going through your book, Stress Express, I learned a lot. I was reminded of certain things. I love the stories that you have in there, as well as all the statistics and the research, because it's a very well-researched book. And I would definitely say, don't walk, run and get it. And it's a great read. And it's something that you can use as a reference too. I saw it as a way to leverage that. So thank you so much for being on the Productivity Smarts podcast.
It's been totally my pleasure, Gerald. I wish you all the best.
Thanks. If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.